When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case. Oh, hello and welcome back to Smashing the Sudoku. This is our 5th episode in a series that looks back at our earliest Grandmaster Puzzles posts. Puzzles that were well before we started having a YouTube channel and asking can we still solve them. And for sure, one of our favorite parts of this series has been looking back at viewer questions. And so if you have questions for the Ask Dr. Sudoku, that's ads@gmpuzzles.com series, please send them to us. Today's question comes from Ben B., who asks us, what are your favorite television shows or web series? There are definitely a set of TV shows I've watched time and time again. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Wire, even Succession, stuff of that sort. Comedies like Silicon Valley. I guess a lot of HBO, which isn't really TV, so I guess it doesn't answer the question at all. But one thing that's been interesting to track through my life and sort of how it has influenced your friends is just my love of watching different kinds of game shows and reality shows, and particularly that the seeing other cultures through their own television. I actually watch foreign versions of these shows a lot. So where my by far favorite US version is The Amazing Race, which is a trial of partnership, some partners who are set and destined for failure, others who know how to work through adversity. I've loved seeing The Genius, particularly all 3 Korean seasons. The Dutch season was just okay, but when The Genius as a whole is an awesome show, like an okay Dutch season of the show is still a pretty awesome form of television. Via's de Mol, another show that has different roots, but it at least has gotten YouTube presence through stuff coming from the Netherlands. And finally, Only Connect. Only Connect is a really fun show, and that I found it during live journal posts, like sort of watching other people who commented on game shows a lot. I was downloading series onto BitTorrent and then sharing them with friends, like Weiwa Wong on a flight back from a World Sudoku Championship in Italy, in India, is where I first kind of introduced him to it. And then he, through our friendship group, would start to write rounds for our own local puzzle community. And eventually he and others, Ian Tullis as well, I think, got to writing puzzles for the show. So that's sort of how like my network of friends became authors on Only Connect. And an example here's a sequences round question. You're meant to identify through as many as 3, but as few as 1 of these. Like if I told you the fourth in a sequence was 30, what you need to tell me is what the first in that sequence is. In this case, I'll give you the clues 30, 25, and 21. And this is actually a puzzle. The sequences round rarely allows you to use music. I could easily have drafted this in a different way and changed the inputs, but I think still gotten to a satisfying conclusion. Today, though, isn't about my favorite TV series. Today is about 2 puzzle styles. They are some of my favorite puzzle styles. That's why they got onto the Grandmaster Puzzle site. They had enough depth to them that they were featuring ourselves. We felt we could do our own puzzles to show good value here. And one was Mashu. Mashu comes from Japan and Nikoli magazine originally. It was originally called White Pearl, Black Pearl, and got to a different name, Mashu, that is now how most of the world refers to it. It's a good example of loop styles where there are turning rules and straight rules, and those end up playing out in different ways across the white and black colored circles. Consecutive Sudoku is a little trickier, and it's actually a style we moved away from. And while it was present in our early weeks, what we found about it is that it has both positive and negative rules to it. You have like the bars tell you digits that must be consecutive, but the absence of bars is telling you stuff that must be non-consecutive. That absence of bars means it's much harder to make a visually distinctive theme, and also means most of the solving is actually driven by non-consecutive constraints, which is not as natural for a solver who's first getting into the style. So we use consecutive pair Sudoku now as an improvement, but we're going to talk through these 2 puzzles as we work through today's site, and we're going to start with this Mashu that has an almost twisted theme. And that almost twisted theme is that, except for this cell here, I'll just put a little spotlight on it, every other position in this puzzle is anti-symmetric, and you can't put a black circle here because it would cause this conflict, and this puzzle doesn't work without, I guess, this white circle here. So maybe we'll keep a watch on that corner, because this circle is doing some heavy lifting for us to have kept it into the puzzle and not have deleted it. Most of the starting places you work with in Mashu are either whites on the edge, so they have to go straight through in the ways we're drawing. In this case, we've got a corner, and now we've got one that's longer on this edge, so this has to turn immediately after on this side. The other are going to be black cells in different places, and black, when we have a line segment right next to it, forces a quick turn into it. This black actually has 2 blacks next to it, so forces this orientation straight away. And I think these are all the default placements you get from just the basic rules in the grid. And I said I would look back in this corner, so I'll do that now. Look how we've almost closed this loop off. And you sometimes want to think about two counterfactuals, either this going down or this coming up. If this comes up, for sure it closes the loop off. You basically have one loop end in this corner until you have some contributions from the left or right. So this going up causes an issue because it now doesn't take any in and closes itself off. So instead this goes down, and we know that for sure. And now we actually can do a count and say that one of these goes right and one goes left. It's this or this, but for sure that's how the count of these go. And then you even have, like in this area, we have a 1, 2, 3 with maybe a fourth. But again, if this comes up with one loop coming in, this goes out. If this does not go up, then this has to also go out. So I guess, is it always the case that this goes out? I've got 1, 2, 3. I can close this off, that's out. And in this case, this turns, actually this is an option. So there's nothing magical yet at the top, but there is a kind of even odd constraint we can think about. What is drawing my attention though is this circle on the other end of where we've just made progress. And why is that? Because if this goes left, we've now effectively marked almost all of this part of the grid outside of the rest of the loop. And so here I now have this black circle carrying a whole lot of weight. It's going to close on itself, or it's going to close on itself, however that goes. And so this edge can't go to the left from this circle here because it isolates a part of the group right away on this side. This isn't a standard deduction, but it's true in this puzzle. So this goes to the right, this comes down, and we still will need to be thinking about how do we complete this area of the loop. If this comes down, notice we've got two ends here that will come together somehow. There's really no escaping that. And then this one end on its own, they can't go anywhere else. So this going down is a problem. This coming up is now required. And I have these ends. This doesn't want to contribute in because we get an odd number in this corner, so this stays away and goes to the left. And that means that these loop ends close off like so. So this is the star of the puzzle, looks to be this right side and odd versus even end counting. This black circle now can't go to the right because of the clues around it, so that means it goes this way. This comes up and closes. We've got to fulfill these white circles. This has to turn immediately. This has to turn immediately. This black cell only can go up now and finishes off this way. This goes to the left. This black circle has to come up. We've got three ends in this corner, so we need to have a fourth end to make this work. That closes this down, forces this to the right, this to the left. This whole set to the left, and to not close one loop. Instead of these joining, these stay apart, and we're through this Mashu puzzle. So it's not always tough after you get it started, but this one circle and then this thinking about 1 versus 2 loop ends and regions got us the way to force this black circle, force this black circle to the right, force this black circle up, and that eventually led to the rest of the solve. I don't think there's as much you can do on the left side of the puzzle until you get the right side of the puzzle squared away. So jumping to our other puzzle, this is our consecutive Sudoku challenge. What do I notice in this puzzle? At the start, I've got a 1 through 9 pangram left to right in the grid. I then have these 3 extra digits, so they're carrying some amount of the weight in this puzzle. I guess this 7 coming in to put a 7 in these cells and a 7 in these cells and an 8 in these cells. That might be part of the start. But actually it looks like more of the weight is being carried by this arrangement of 4, 5, and 6. So one thing I note is that a 5 has to come down into these cells because it can't be touching the 4 or 6 clues, and it's vertically there. And the 4s also work that way. So 4 can't be in these cells in red, it can't be in these cells in red, so it's got to be here. And the 6 can't be in these cells or in these cells, so it's got to be here. And those 6 notes actually surround a 7 note and can't touch because of the non-consecutive rules. So I think this is a good start to the top of the grid. This 9 coming across can't be touching to an 8 cell, so we know this, but if this is an 8, then this is the 9. If this is the 8, then either of these are the 9. I've got a 3 in one of these cells. That's not great, but it's limiting. Actually, this cell has, like, which of these cells has the least options for it? Like, this can still be a 1 or 2 and a 9. So this still has a lot of choice. This cell can be a 1 or a 3. I think everything else is now eliminated. The 9 is over here to the left. Yeah, the 2 is seen by a 4, seen by the rest are all around. But nothing too big at the top that's limiting. Like this 7 here is going to have the 6 as an issue for it, but 6 has lots of choices. The 3 here is going to leave these for the 4. But these corners are actually pretty dead in terms of how the no touching rules work. So there's got to be something else here, and maybe this is the start of it. Notice that I've got the 4s and the 6s already in the 4th and 6th columns. So down here, let me just do something that's not a normal Snyder node and just do this. And for sure, actually, 4 and 6 aren't consecutive. So, well, one of these is going to be a 4, 6. How do I want to mark this? Maybe I'll put draw edges on. There's a 4, 6 on this edge, but there's also for sure a 4, 6 in this box, which means I guess we're going to have a 3 or a 7 in this box. And this 4, 6 on the edge needs a consecutive value, but it's also not a consecutive value like 5. So this is going to also have then a 3 or 7 with it. And that means we're going to be getting to a very particular digit space. Let's zoom out one step. I came to this bottom without just noting some other things about the grid. There are 2 long consecutive runs in this puzzle. Here's a run of 5 cells, which will always contain the digit 5. And here's another run of 5 cells that will always contain the digit 5. And it looks like these are the cells that the 5 can be in this case. And this is going to actually have, it looks like the run-up is going to be with a 4, 6 with a 3, 7. So let's say it were 3, 4, that would then be 5, 6. If it's 7, 6, then it's 5, 3. So the 5 is always immediately next to the centerpiece. And that means this could be the 5 of a 4, 6 with a 3, 7 coming out like so. So anyway, across these cells is 3, 4, 6, and 7, which means I'm left with 1, 2, and 9. This cell then is a single because 2 and 9 sees it. I can't put a 2 next to the 1, so this is a 2. This is a 9. Those two 2s give me this 2. And I know actually for sure there's a 9 across these. The 1 here can't touch to this 2, so 1 has to be in these cells. The 3 can't be in these cells or these cells next to the 2, so this is a 3. That means the 3 is in one of these cells, but it's not next to that 2, so that's a 3. This is a 6. This is a 9. This is a 4. This 6 coming across can also be in this cell, so this is a 6. So now we have a case where we're going to need to put in a 4 and a 5. The 5 and the 1 actually collide, so this is a 1, 5 pair. 4 is over here. We're going to get a 6 across these cells. This is 1, 5, 7. A thing to note about 5 or 7 is those are both consecutive to 6, so whatever value is in the cell, it can't have a 6 next to it. That puts this in. This is now 4 with 8, and the 4 can't be next to that 3, so we've got some good progress here. Let's see if there's more we can do. Well, we now have 4 and 6 in this column, and what that means is, can this really be a 5? If this is a 5, then 4, 6 has to be above it, so this no longer looks like it can be that value. This looks like it is that value. And let me actually erase what's on this edge. Now I can say with more certainty, 4, 6 is there, and that means 3, 7 is here, and that means 2, 8 is here, and that means 1, 9 is here. And looking up at this, where 9 is given, this has to be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 6, this is 7. The 5 from below cancels over to here. The 2 has to come to this cell, 3 has to dodge, and 8 is in there. 8 gets finished on this spot, 7 under 9. Again, you don't want a 7 touching that 6. We can eliminate some of these cells where the 5 was almost about to go. And we can probably force this box by just figuring out which 5 is being used. If a 5 is here, this can't be a 4, so this would be 5, 6, 7, 8, and that 8 is canceling there, so there's no 5 in this cell. If this is 5, this could be 6, 7, 8, 9, but that cancels this 9 here. This is 5, it could be 4, 3, 2, 1, that's still okay. And if 5 was here, it would have to put a 4 or 6 into one of these cells because it's adjacent, so this must be a 5. This has to be, again, an extreme like 1 or 9, but 9 is in the grid, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's sort of how fast the puzzles sometimes work. This is the last spot for 2, moves down the spot for the 1. We have 7 across these cells, 9, 6, 8. All those cells actually see, so this is now 9, 8 with a terminal 6. That 7 moves 7 and 5 and 5. This is now a 6, 8 location. What else do we have? We have a 4 we still have to place here, and then another 6, 8, but there's a 6 to the right, so this is 8 over 6. This is 3 with a 7 under it. We've got 5 and 6 to go here. We have 3, 4, 8, so 8 has to be, sorry, we have 4, 8, 9, so the 8 and 9 have to be split apart. And looking at the 8, sorry, the 9 up above, that goes this way. Those 9s are going to give me a 9 in this space and 8 in this space. The 9 can't be part of a consecutive set because of where the 8 sits in that. So this is now 4, 5. This is 6, 7. The 7 has to avoid the 8. So 6 and 5. This up here is 1, 2, 3. The 2 is over here. This is going to be 1, 3, 1, 3. We'll work off the 4 to know this is 3 coming down, and that 4 also gives us 4 with 5. 5 with 1, another 1. This is 3, this is 7, and we're through this grid. So a lot of the non-consecutive constraints, hopefully you actually were able to find yourself that really cool deduction, that center column, with 3, 4, 6, and 7 fully spent that gives you the 1, 9, 2, and this 2 then being the linchpin to get the whole of the top of this grid. It's actually a pretty cool solution, this 2 into this 1, into the rest. So it looks like I rediscovered some of the good. I guess I discovered some of the Dr. Jekyll and I didn't run into enough of the Mr. Hyde, but this is a puzzle with 2 very different sides and a lot of different thinking, and hopefully across these 2 puzzles where even Mashu sometimes means evil influence, you got a sense of the good and the bad of puzzles, and you decided to stick with Grandmaster puzzles, even if the Ask Dr. Sudoku series is a little crazy right now. So thanks for watching me smash the Sudoku, and we'll see you again soon.